Before we begin, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more in-depth true crime documentaries. Your support, honestly, allows us to continue exploring the untold stories behind history's most notorious figures. Fair use. Disclaimer. This film may contain archival footage, photographs, and short excerpts used solely for commentary, education, and research under Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. All rights belong to their respective owners. New York City, the beating heart of the American underworld. And no name looms larger in that history than John Joseph Gotti, the man who went from street enforcer to head of the Gambino crime family, the most powerful mafia family in the United States. He was called the Dapper Don for his expensive suits and charismatic public image, and the Teflon Don for his uncanny ability to beat case after case in court. But behind the headlines, the myth, and the celebrity, lies a darker truth. One written in wiretaps, courtroom testimony, FBI files, and the bodies of men who crossed him. This is not the Hollywood version of John Gotti. This is the documented story, based on truth, law, and evidence. And it reveals a man who rose on loyalty, fell on betrayal, and left a bloody legacy that still shapes organized crime today. John Gotti was born in 1940 in the South Bronx, the fifth of 13 children in a working-class Italian-American family. Poverty was constant. His father worked irregular jobs, and young John found his role not in classrooms, but in the streets. By his teens, Gotti was already immersed in gangs. He idolized neighborhood mobsters, men with sharp suits and Cadillacs who seemed untouchable. At 16, Gotti was arrested for the first time, accused of stealing. His rap sheet would grow steadily, drawing the attention of local wise guys connected to the Gambino family. By the early 1960s, Gotti had been recruited as an enforcer for the Gambino crew operating in Queens. He learned the rules of Cosa Nostra: loyalty, silence, obedience. But he also learned that breaking the rules, if done with confidence and muscle, could bring faster rewards. In 1973, Gotti made his bones. That's mob slang for carrying out his first sanctioned murder. His target was James McBratney, a small-time gangster who had kidnapped a Gambino associate. Gotti, along with two accomplices, lured McBratney into a Staten Island bar. The killing was sloppy. Eyewitnesses saw Gotti flee the scene. He was arrested within days. But Gotti's fate took a turn. His lawyer, the sharp Roy Cohn, engineered a plea deal. Gotti served just 4 years for manslaughter. Inside prison, his reputation as a loyal and capable soldier only grew. By the time he walked free, John Gotti was no longer a foot soldier. He was a man trusted to do the Gambino family's dirty work. The Gambino family controlled vast rackets, construction, trucking, loan sharking, and unions. Gotti's job was to enforce those interests, and to collect payments. His crew at the Bergen Hunt and Fish Club in Ozone Park became notorious. They hijacked trucks, ran gambling operations, and used violence to settle disputes. By 1980, Gotti had been promoted to caporegime, or captain. It was a meteoric rise, fueled by his charisma and his willingness to take risks. But it was also marked by tragedy. That same year, Gotti's youngest son Frank was struck and killed by a car driven by a neighbor, John Favara. The death was ruled an accident. Weeks later, Favara disappeared. He was never seen again. Though Gotti was never charged, FBI investigators long suspected that Favara was killed in retaliation, a reminder of how personal and ruthless mob justice could be. At the top of the Gambino family sat Paul Castellano, the boss since 1976. Castellano's leadership was businesslike, but his focus on white-collar rackets and his disdain for street-level crews caused resentment. John Gotti believed Castellano was out of touch, and when Castellano failed to attend the funeral of Agnello Della Croce, Gotti's mentor and underboss, Gotti made his move. On December 16, 1985, Castellano arrived at Sparks Steakhouse in Manhattan. Outside, gunmen loyal to Gotti were waiting. Castellano and his driver were shot dead in a hail of bullets on the sidewalk. It was the most audacious mob hit in decades, carried out on one of Manhattan's busiest streets during rush hour. The hit catapulted Gotti to the top. Within days he was named boss of the Gambino family. As boss, Gotti broke with mafia tradition. Instead of staying in the shadows, he embraced the spotlight. He wore custom Brioni suits, held court at neighborhood clubs, and smiled for reporters. The press dubbed him the Dapper Don. He became a celebrity mobster, splashed across front pages, discussed on talk shows, but behind the scenes his family's operations grew. Gambling, extortion, and heroin trafficking generated millions. Gotti took his cut from every deal, making him one of the richest mob bosses in America. Law enforcement, however, saw opportunity. Gotti's public swagger made him a target, and with new federal tools like RICO statutes, laws that allowed prosecutors to connect bosses to crimes committed by underlings, the FBI prepared to bring him down. In the late 1980s, Gotti faced 3 high-profile federal trials. Each time prosecutors believed they had him cornered, and each time Gotti walked free. Witnesses disappeared, jurors were tampered with, evidence was undermined. Defense lawyers painted Gotti as a victim of government overreach. After one acquittal in 1987, Gotti emerged from court smiling, waving to crowds. The media christened him the Teflon Don, charges never stuck. But behind the scenes, investigators were learning. They knew they needed more than circumstantial evidence. They needed someone from inside. The FBI placed microphones inside Gotti's headquarters, the Ravenite Social Club in Little Italy. For months, agents listened as Gotti discussed family business, discipline, and killings. But the real blow came from within. Sammy the Bull Gravano, Gotti's underboss, flipped. Facing charges himself, Gravano agreed to testify against Gotti in exchange for leniency. So, Gravano admitted to participating in 19 murders. On the stand, he described Gotti as a ruthless leader who, honestly, ordered hits without hesitation. The combination of Gravano's testimony and the FBI's wiretaps, well, it built a case no jury could ignore. In 1992, John Gotti faced trial for racketeering, murder, and a bunch of other charges under RICO. For weeks, jurors heard tapes of Gotti, discussing family crimes. They listened to Gravano's first-hand accounts. The defense really struggled to shake the evidence. On April 2, 1992, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts. Gotti was sentenced to life in prison without parole. The Teflon Don had finally been pinned down by the very laws he thought he could outrun. Gotti was sent to the federal penitentiary in Marion, Illinois, one of the nation's most secure prisons. His influence on the outside diminished, but he remained a figure of fascination. In 1998, he was diagnosed with throat cancer. He was transferred to a medical facility, where his condition, worsened. On June 10, 2002, John Gotti died at the age of 61. His funeral in Queens drew thousands, with mourners lining the streets to watch the procession. To some, he was a folk hero, a neighborhood protector. To others, he was a ruthless criminal who left a trail of bodies. John Gotti's story is, really a study in contradictions. He embodied the old-world code of loyalty, but, he broke it when it suited him. He craved the spotlight, and honestly, that became his undoing. His reign marked the last great era of mafia celebrity. After Gotti, the mob just retreated into the shadows once more, weakened by federal prosecutions and betrayals from within. The evidence shows a man who, for a while, outsmarted the law, but not forever. His downfall proved that no boss, no matter how powerful, was beyond the reach of RICO, wiretaps, and, betrayal. John Gotti remains a legend, but to be honest, the truth is far from glamorous. His empire was built on violence, intimidation, and fear. The Teflon Don may have captured headlines, but, in the end, history remembers the facts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fact-based true crime documentaries.